Let's talk about 2017 TVR Griffith as it appears in the Crew 2. It is a revival of the Griffith brand and the prototype appeared in 2017. And it was one of those prototypes that was not just a plastic box on wheels, this was a working prototype. Sadly, the production of the car so far has been delayed due to COVID-19 pandemic, and as far as I know, no cars have showed up for sale. Well, let's look at statistics in the game. It starts off at 199 performance level, which translates into over 322 km/h top speed and unknown brake horsepower. In game, it could be upgraded to 280 performance level, at which we get 363 km/h top speed, 700 brake horsepower, 0 to 100 km in 2.33 seconds, quarter mile in 9.43 seconds, 1.18 lateral G, and brake distance from 100 km/h to 0 in 14.95 meters. And of course, parts will give us other bonuses, as you can see. Now, how does that all translate in the game? Well, let's go to Dominion Forsberg number 7 race to show you the performance of the car. This race has plenty of turns and some straights, and is a good way to show the speed and the grip that the car provides. So, from the start, I would like to note two things here. The first is that you're gonna see the ghost of Mazda Miata MX-5, which I will almost beat, but not exactly. So, here you go. And the second thing I would like to note is that I really like the sound of the engine of this car. It really sounds well. It sounds like the engine of the racing car to me. Well, here we are, we're going through the first several turns. We are at the 5th gear, and here we go. This is the last turn we're gonna do in the 5th gear, and we're gonna go into the 4th gear from here, and gonna do the next few turns in the 4th gear, keeping the RPMs up. Here we're gonna try to get to the 5th gear, and we will be making to the 5th gear, and then try to stay at the high RPMs as we're making these turns in order to get ahead of the ghost here. And we are actually going ahead of the ghost, and now we're just gonna keep on going in the 5th through the next several turns. Now at this turn we are gonna lift off just a bit in order to make it into the turn so we do not slide off, and now after that we're gonna press it down, go into the 6th gear, use a bit of nitro to speed up and go forward. Here we are again in 6th gear, we're going back to 5th in order to make these turns, because if we go too fast we're gonna drift just a bit. Not too much, the car really maintains itself on the road, no problems, but a bit too much of a drift will cost us in terms of time, and so I will not want to drift here. I really do want to beat the ghost. And here we're going back into the 4th gear here, going through these turns here, and we are slightly ahead of the ghost again. And now we're pressing into the 5th gear, staying at the high RPMs as we go through these turns, staying so in order to get enough grip to go through the turns and then to go straight through into the 6th gear as soon as possible, but that will happen only after next several turns. And as I'm going through here into this last turn before the start of the finish, as you want to call it, I do just press down. I don't need to lift up, I only need to lift off before the second last turn. Here we are back into the 5th again in order to make it through these turns, go into them really nice and smooth, and again here we are going forward in the 5th, and I'm using nitro a bit just to speed myself up, as I'm really hoping to beat the ghost, as it really feels possible to me right now. And here's the last turn at the 5th. Now we're going back to 4th here and smoothly going through these turns, no issues here. Now we're going to go ahead and speed up back to the 5th gear here, go through these turns and just wait to explode and go forward as fast as we can. Here we are completing these turns. Now in the 5th we're going to go ahead, press forward and go through all these turns here, slightly lift off, and just now press down as I'm desperately trying to beat the ghost here, but I won't be able to beat it. And here we are at the finish, so we are just slightly behind the ghost. Overall, the car performed really well on the turns, just sitting on the road really nicely, and will continue to do so throughout all the rest of the races. Now let's do a race that has longer straights, in some turns as well. Central Woods West is perfect for this as it has longer straight runs and not very sharp turns, which will allow us to put the pedal down.
Three, two, one.
So we're going to start off, first we're going to get through the opponents. This will involve some pushing and just kind of trying to avoid them at the same time, and a bit of pushing again. And here we are at the 5th now, and we're going into the 6th. We're going to try to pass the opponents here. And as we're going to go ahead forward, and VR seems to be ahead, but actually no, the opponent are closing in on us. And as we go into the 5th, it allows them to catch up to us. Now we're going to go back to the 6th. But there's a bit of a slowdown that's gonna allow them to catch up, and here they are. We're going back to the 5th in order to make this turn, and I'm a bit sliding off here. It's partially because I'm trying to deal with opponents at the same time, but it's also kind of a bit of a mistake. And we're going in the 5th here, continuing on, which allows us to kind of keep up with opponents but not to catch up. We're going to drop down to the 4th in order to do these 2 turns, and so not we don't fly off as the opponents do too far off the actual road, but we still do, but we are able to recover. That's something that's really good about this car. It's able to recover really well. So now we are in the 4th, we're going through the next few turns here, trying to catch up to the opponent that's ahead of us, and here we are again trying to catch up. Slightly sliding off the road a bit, which allows the opponent to go ahead and get in front of us more. And now we're back to the 5th, and I cut through on the dirt, which actually cost me time. As you can see, the opponent has got much more ahead of me, but I use nitro to speed up to the 6th and then just to push it forward so I can make some distance between and the opponent. And now we are pressing through here. We're going to drop back to the 4th in order to make this few turns and kind of cut through in order to again build distance between us and the opponents. And here we are, we're coming up to a turn. I will drop down to the 4th in order to make it a smooth turn, and then I'm going to go back to the 5th, and now I'm going to try to make it to the 6th, but as there are minor turns I won't be able to make it to the 6th all the way. And while I do, I actually go off the road to the dirt, and now I'm getting back again. Like I said, the car maintains itself really well. It constantly contains the grip to the ground, even if it is dirt. And now I'm making these minor turns and back into the 6th, and we are going forward. No issues here. Everything's pretty smooth. We're dropping back to the 4th in order to make this as a smooth turn as possible. And again, back to the 5th. We're gonna speed up and try to reach the 6th as soon as possible in order to gain as much distance between us and the opponents. And here we are again in the 6th. I'm making all the turns, no issues, slightly going onto the ground, but not too much. And now we're back into the 4th, making this last few turns really smoothly. You can hear that the opponents are not doing so well and so on. And we are again taking a turn on the 4th, really nice and smooth. And now we are just pressing forward to the finish. There you go. And so you can see how well the car sits on the road and how well it does the turns. It really does them so well that I enjoy going into the turns. So after all this discussion about turns and how well the car sits on the road, let's go to Coastal Range 2 LA race, as it is perfect to demonstrate the car's ability to sit on the road, as the race is just all turns.
3, 2, 1.
So this was a really hard race to actually record because it's a very narrow race, and little mistakes might just mean that you fly off onto the side behind the barrier, and now you have to restart again. And so there we are now in the 4th gear as I am making through all these turns, and it's kind of hard right now to do them as smoothly because I have opponents that I have to deal with, and they kind of dictate how well I can do the turns because they dictate how well I can brake or how well I can accelerate. And you can see some car just flew off there onto completely to the left. And now we are in the 5th as I'm trying to rush through and trying to catch up with our opponents in front. I'm going into the 4th, and here we are. You can see I'm doing a very nice smooth turn, another very nice smooth turn, because now we don't have that many opponents. I'm almost not touching the sides here as I'm making the next turn. Again, I'm not touching the sides here either. And now is the time to speed up here, go into the 5th and try to make it to the 6th in order to beat all the opponents here. I'm catching up to the next one. I'm going into the 6th gear, and here we are now, only one opponent left to catch up to. I'm seeing that opponent. Next turn I just a bit lifting off in order to make it to that turn. I did not adjust myself well enough, that's why I actually hit an object there. But again, we're going forward, really pressing down really well, no issues here. Now I'm going to drop to the 5th in order to make this turn, and we're going to drop again into the 4th in order to make next series of turns. And you can see how well the car goes into turns. Here we get past because we slowed down, but you can see that the opponents are not making that move over transitions in the turns. They're not making that smooth over turns, and so I'm able to pass them because I'm making much more smoother turns. So when I do hit the sides like right now, this was my fault because I did not brake enough, or I was trying to go too fast or in a wrong gear in order to make the turns. Here we are, see, that was a situation where I went into the 6th gear too early and had to go back to the 5th, but I did not hit the sides. But sometimes when I do such things, like when I transition late or try to kind of go from the 4th into the 5th, I will hit the sides. Here we are again, making smooth turns. When I do things properly, the car has no issues making smooth turns, and at the same time I'm able to keep up the speed. I'm not losing too much of speed, I'm not getting passed too fast by the opponent, so I don't have to really catch up too much. And here we are in the 4th, making all these turns pretty smoothly. It will be some hits on the sides again because I will be late on braking, and so I will hit the sides, which will cost me in terms of speed and time, of course. And here we are making a few more turns. Like I said, this race is all turns, so you have to kind of keep on turning, and it's a very narrow race, so it's very easy to hit the sides. So you have to be very good at taking the turns, judging them, braking properly, and making sure you are also gearing down properly so you get enough grip. Here we are going in the 5th, into the 6th as we're making this turn. So eventually we'll have to go back down into the 5th as this kind of area where I can go in the 6th gear will end very quickly. There's not that many straights here, and or even those that you can call straights are pretty much a bit of a curve. And here we are in the 5th. I should have dropped down to the 4th to make it a manageable turn, and here we again we're dropping down to the 4th in order to make this turn. We're staying in the 4th here to make this one again, and now we are powering into the 5th, and we're gonna go ahead and make next few turns in the 5th gear here. And here we are again, few more turns in the 5th gear, no issues. Now we are going forward here. I should have dropped down to the 4th and brake, but you see, as a result, the opponent have caught up to me because I went onto the dirt, and that cost me in speed. But here we are, we can go ahead into the 6th and just kind of avoid that small turn because, well, we can just power through on the dirt. And now we are in the 4th making these turns. You can see that the opponents are not doing so well. They are not so smooth. They're kind of flying off in order to make these turns. We are keeping to the road really well, and we're actually catching up at the same time. Here we are again, another turn, really nicely, smoothly down, and another turn, and it looks like we almost passed the opponent, but not yet. Now we're going into the straight. I'm just gonna press it down here in order to finish first. As you can see, the whole race is all turns, but the car handles itself really well. It sits well on the road, and the only time when I do hit the sides, it usually is my fault because I was just really late on braking, or I misjudged the turn and they did not shut down. So in conclusion, TVR Griffith is a great street racing car. It sits really well on the road, allows for an easy minor adjustments during turns, and it is possible to use its rear drift to go into tight turns easily if you learn to control it. And the engine sound in the game is just really great. Driving it was just a pleasure, and when looking at the recordings of the races, the car sat so well and went so smoothly through the turns that it did not feel like I was racing in it. I really like the car in the crew too. Thank you for watching and listening. If you like this video, please like it. If you didn't like it, don't like it, and please subscribe.